In this video, we will look at another very interesting aspect of web called cookies. Nope, these are not the yummy edible cookies. Cookies mean something altogether different in the web world. So why do these cookies arise? HTTP, as I have mentioned earlier, is a stateless protocol. When a server receives a request, it looks at the request alone and serves. It has no idea of the kind of request it served for a given user before or who this user is. But often servers like to maintain state specific to a given user. You may have already experienced shopping carts where you visit a website, you drag some items into a cart, and later when you revisit the website, you can still see the items as part of your cart. And sometimes when a user visits a certain website, he would like the background of the website, the skin, to be of a different color, or he may want the weather report to be displayed in one corner, so on. Not just the users, the server are also interested in keeping state with respect to a user. For example, they are interested in the browsing history of a particular user. What all web pages has he visited in the past, so that they can custom fit information to pass on to the user, like suggestions to the user on what to buy. At times the server also needs to know whether a user is logged in or not. If he is logged in, the server can display some confidential information. So for all this, state maintenance is needed, but HTTP does not maintain state. So how do you solve it? What are your ideas? Actually, it is very simple. You use what are called cookies. So the server sends a small amount of data called a cookie to store at the client. And each time the client contacts the server, it is going to send this cookie back to the server. A cookie is associated with a domain, for example, Amazon.com. So whenever the client contacts the Amazon.com servers, he is going to pass on all the cookies related to this particular domain. How does this specifically help? We will see an example shortly. So here is the cookie structure. All browsers support cookies. In fact, they often support up to 300 cookies, and each cookie they support at least 4 kilobytes of data. And for a given domain, they can support up to 20 cookies. A cookie carries the following information. It has a name and there is a value associated with this particular name. And these cookies also have an expiry date and the path the cookie is good for. So for example, if the path were say accounts, then this cookie is valid for all the objects stored under this accounts. Domain I have already mentioned before. These capture a given organization like Amazon.com. The type of connection needed specifies whether you need security to transfer the cookie. In other words, encrypted cookies. So here is an example that shows how cookies work. So for example, a browser has contacted a server, and as part of it, it has filled up some content. So basically it's uploading a form with its user identification, and it used this method post to upload this information. Now what the server does in its reply, it is going to say 200 OK, and it will pass on some other header fields. I'm not showing everything. I'm only showing fields related to the cookie. It will send set cookie field where this is the name of the cookie and this is the value of the cookie. Next time on, the server is going to use this combination to identify this particular user. Not only that, the server is also going to maintain an entry in its backend database specific to this user. For now, it may just include whatever the user has filled. Later, when this user visits the same web page and now asks for additional information, the browser is going to send back this cookie in this particular fashion. Now the server will look at this information, interpret it accordingly, access the backend and retrieve the user's information. And when conveying the reply back, it could, for example, say welcome Pappu, and it may also note down within its backend that Pappu now has accessed info.html. So that is how the server maintains state. Cookies are very powerful. In fact, they can achieve very useful things. At the same time, they can also track a lot of things about you, and this leads to privacy concerns. By the way, cookies cannot carry virus or install malware on your computer because they're just a piece of text. But still they can track a lot about you. You probably don't mind first-party tracking, by which I mean if you're visiting the Amazon website and it tracks what all web pages within Amazon you visited, you probably don't mind that. But you do mind others getting to know your entire web browsing history, that you visited Amazon, following this you visited Yahoo, following this you visited Flipkart, so on. This can potentially be achieved through what are called third-party cookies. So what are these third-party cookies? A given web page for a given domain may contain objects from other domains, for example, advertisements. Now, when you try to display this web page of a given domain, you will also contact these other domains to retrieve the ads, and as a part of it, you can set cookies related to these other domains. Those are called third-party cookies. And how do they track user browsing habits? Let me give an example. Suppose you visit a website A, let me call it by this domain www.xyz.com, and this particular website A has an ad with this particular object. Now this corresponds to a different domain called maliciousAds.com. Now your web browser, when it is downloading this particular web page, it is also going to contact this particular URL to retrieve this particular image to display the ad. Now this particular server, Malicious Ads, is then going to return a cookie for the first time users, let's say containing an ID called 1111, and it is also going to note down that this particular ID 1111 has visited web page A. How can it possibly know that this particular user has visited web page A? Well, this particular image that it embed as part of website A, it is going to give it a unique number, and this number always corresponds to website A. So the conclusion here is that the malicious ad server now knows one user with the ID 1111 has visited website A. Now suppose this user visits another website B which also has an ad object from this particular maliciousAds.com. Now this user is again going to contact this particular maliciousAds.com, but when it contacts it, it is now going to pass on this cookie because this cookie corresponds to this particular domain. Now when this maliciousAds.com sees this cookie, it has within its history that this user visited website A, and now it knows that he visited website B because this particular number is associated with website B. Now it knows you visited website A and B. Now if you are this maliciousAds.com, you give lot of money to all these websites to populate them with your advertisements, and as a consequence of this, you can track lot of user browsing history which you can then sell to make money. There is actually lot of tracking that happens as part of the browsing, and some of these giants like Google have even larger reach, because they have information about your user accounts, and since they support browsers, they can get information via the browsers, and they do lot of advertisement support, so they can do all this as well. So if privacy is a big concern, be wary. Most browsers these days let you control cookies. For example, you can see and selectively delete current cookies. You can also disable third-party cookies, where you are telling the browser not to install any third-party cookies. You can disable cookies altogether as well. There is also this cookie eating software that you can install that will give you very fine-grained control over how to manage cookies. Let me quickly show you how cookies are managed as part of browsers. So again, I have pulled up my Google Chrome, which is the browser, and I'm going to look at settings. Under settings, you have to go for advanced, and within this you need to go for this privacy setting, the content settings, and here as you can see the cookies show. I didn't block third-party cookies and site data, but if you want you can block it. You can also block sites from setting any data. We want to look at what are all the cookies that are set. You can click on this. There are plenty of cookies. Let's just look at one. So let's look at this cookie. There are 2 cookies associated with this particular domain. Let me look at one of these. Here is the name of the cookie. This is the value of the cookie. This is the domain, and the path is /, which means it is applicable for the entire domain. And it says this cookie is valid for any kind of connection, secure or otherwise. And it also says this is acceptable to a script. In other words, you can use JavaScripts to access the cookie. And this cookie was created on November 9th, 2013 at this particular time. And it also expires on Monday, November 9, 2015, this particular time. So here is the other cookie with a different name and a different content. Rest of them seems to be the same. If you want to remove this cookie, you can always remove it. So to summarize, cookies can provide a powerful set of features by letting HTTP maintain state, but cookies can also lead to privacy violations. Most web browsers do provide some mechanism to manage cookies. So that's it with respect to cookies.